New stories I made.
The Abyssal Hierophant number 1, Where the Tide Remembers. The ocean does not forget. It remembers the first stone that ever sank. It remembers the bones of leviathans that dissolved into silt. It remembers prayers whispered into salt water by sailors who did not know they were already dead. And far below the reach of light, in the trench where pressure crushes steel like paper, it remembers him. Kale Thalasar kneels upon a floor of black coral spiraling like a cathedral grown from nightmare. Bioluminescent spires curve overhead, their soft blue glow diffused through drifting particulate that resembles constellations trapped beneath the sea. His hands rest lightly on his knees. His spine is straight. His eyes are closed. Around him, the abyssal cloister hums, not with sound, but with tension, with held breath. There is a fracture in the veil beneath. He can feel it. It vibrates through the metaphysical current known only to a handful of living beings, the tide beyond. A force that is not water, but moves like it. Not time, but flows like it. Kale senses the disturbance the way sailors once sensed storms before clouds ever formed. Above him, thousands of miles away, the surface world sleeps. Below him, something presses upward. He exhales. The water around his body bends subtly, forming a sphere of stillness within crushing darkness. His mind slips free of flesh. Astral light peels from him like a second skin, luminous, calm, precise. He descends without moving. Consciousness plunges through strata of reality that exist beneath matter. And he sees it. The tear. A wound in the veil beneath, no larger than a cathedral door, but widening. It pulses with a color not cataloged in any human spectrum. Through it, something vast and patient regards the world like a predator studying a cracked cage. Kale's jaw tightens. "You pressed too soon," he murmurs, though the words are thought, not breath. The pressure increases, and something inside him answers. Warm, amused, hungry. "You feel it too, don't you?" A voice purrs at the edge of his mind. Kale turns within the astral current. There stands another version of himself. The same face, the same posture, but the eyes are black voids veined with abyssal blue light. Thalasar smiles. "You always try to fix things quietly," Thalasar says, voice smooth as oil across water. "Seal it, stitch it, pretend nothing is wrong, but it is wrong. It is always wrong." "The veil must hold," Kale replies. "The veil is a lie," Thalasar counters. "It cages what should be free. It protects a species that poisons our seas and drills into our cradle." Kale extends his will toward the wound. Radiant geometry spins from his palms, concentric rings of ancient sigils older than reef growth. The tear shrinks by inches. On the other side, something shifts. An eye opens. It is larger than continents. Kale's breath falters. Thalasar laughs softly. "There it is. You feel it, don't you? The inevitability. We are not wardens, Kale. We are postponements." The eye blinks. Pressure detonates through the trench. In the physical world, the abyssal cloister shudders. Coral pillars fracture. Monks in distant meditation chambers gasp as psychic shockwaves ripple outward through miles of ocean. Kale slams both hands into the astral wound. Light erupts. Water convulses across the seabed. Creatures flee in blind terror. Submersibles near the surface lose power as electromagnetic storms burst upward from the trench like inverted lightning. Kale channels everything. Discipline, memory, grief. He remembers Nerethus before its fall. Golden spires woven from living reef. Children racing through bioluminescent gardens. Laughter echoing like hymn song through water. He remembers the warships above, the toxins, the fire. He remembers the ritual. He remembers splitting his own soul because he believed pain could be compartmentalized. The tear resists. Thalasar steps closer within the shared mindscape. "You cannot hold it alone." "I do not hold it alone," Kale answers. He reaches outward, not into the abyss, but across the oceans. Whales pause mid-song. Sharks turn toward the trench. Coral polyps alter their pulse. Even plankton shift their rhythm. A planetary nervous system awakens. The ocean answers its hierophant. Currents converge. Tides bend. The weight of every sea presses downward upon the tear like the palm of a god. The veil begins to mend. The eye narrows. Thalasar's smile falters. "You delay the inevitable." "Yes," Kale says. The wound seals. Silence floods the trench. Kale's astral form retracts. Consciousness slams back into flesh like a diver breaching too quickly. He opens his eyes. For a moment, the water around him glows white hot. Then it dims. Cracks spiderweb across coral walls. Monks approach in flowing robes, silent, reverent, wary. The veil holds, Kale says softly, but far above on the surface a storm begins forming with unnatural speed. Clouds spiral over an offshore oil platform in the northern sea. Workers stare upward as waves rise without wind. Instruments fail. Radios scream static. Kale feels it instantly, not the abyss, himself. Thalasar stands at the forefront of their shared consciousness now, fingers flexing. You're tired, Thalasar murmurs. Let me breathe. No, you use the ocean's full weight. You cannot command it again so soon. The storm swells. Waves tower like black mountains. Lightning forks not from sky to sea, but sea to sky. Kale attempts to still the waters. They do not answer, because they are answering something else. Thalasar inhales. Their body rises from the trench in a spiraling column of water that drills upward like a living spear. In the cloister, the monks watch in silent horror as their Hierophant vanishes. The ocean splits. He breaches through the storm like a fallen star ascending instead of descending. Water cascades from armor of living coral and flowing sigil-etched robes. A halo of rotating glyphs ignites behind his head. On the platform, men scream. Thalasar looks down with theatrical curiosity. So small, he whispers. Lightning arcs into his palm and bends, obedient. Inside, Kale fights. Do not, Kale urges. They are ignorant, not malicious. They drill into our grave, Thalasar replies. They deserve to drown in it. He gestures. The ocean rises. Metal shrieks as the platform twists, bolts shear. Machinery implodes under impossible pressure. Workers leap into chaos below. Kale forces himself forward within their shared body, seizing control of one arm. The tidal wave hesitates mid-collapse. The sea trembles between annihilation and mercy. Thalasar's eyes blaze brighter. You would save them? Yes. They will build another. Yes. They will poison again. Yes. Then what is the point? Kale does not answer with words. He answers with restraint. The wave crashes, but not upon the men. It engulfs the surrounding sea instead, swallowing flame and machinery, dismantling infrastructure without crushing the fleeing workers. The platform collapses in controlled ruin, sinking rather than detonating. Men cling to debris. Rescue helicopters cut through the fracturing clouds. Thalasar snarls. You always choose the lesser wound. I choose balance. You choose cowardice. Kale forces the storm to dissipate. Rain softens, waves calm, the halo flickers out. For a long moment, he hovers above wreckage, neither savior nor destroyer. Then he sinks beneath the surface, vanishing into dark. Deep in the trench where light never lingers, the veil pulses once. A hairline crack reappears. On the other side, something immense shifts closer. And this time, when it presses against the boundary, it does not test. It smiles. Within the descending figure of Kale Thalasar, something smiles back.
Okay, these next 3 stories may be a little weird, so there's a female knight who has a connection to a demon known as the Boogeyman. And because of their connection, she nicknamed him Winter, and because it's like a marital contract thing, he calls her wife, but as like a not like a possessive way. It's the reason I gave you all the reason why he calls her wife, but the reason she calls him Winter is because he's like a cold type of person. So yeah. Anyways, here we go with the next 3 stories.
The Thorned Mare number 1, When the Hut Walks. There are roads that do not appear on maps. They cut through forests that refuse to be logged, across plains that remember hooves long turned to dust, through towns where the streetlights flicker not from faulty wiring, but from something brushing past them in the dark. On those roads, if you walk alone long enough, you may hear bells. Not church bells, harness bells, and if you turn too slowly, you will see her. The first time the Crooked Hut returned that winter, it came walking through a blizzard. Snow devoured the northern plains in white fury, swallowing fences, highways, and the last unfinished drilling rigs of Black Ridge Extraction's newest site. The company had ignored injunctions and protests. ignored the elders who had come with tobacco and warnings, ignored the bones unearthed by their own machines. The land had been quiet for weeks. Then the temperature dropped 30 degrees in a single hour. Security footage would later show nothing but static and a shape moving behind the curtain of snow. Something tall, limping, rhythmic. Inside the central trailer, 5 contractors huddled around a space heater and a flickering television. Their radios had died an hour earlier. Their satellite phones showed no signal. "Storm will pass," one muttered. Outside, the wind stopped. Not faded. Stopped. The silence that followed was worse than the storm. One of the men stepped outside to check the generators. He did not see the hut at first. It stood at the edge of the cleared earth where bulldozers had carved into burial ground. It was built of timber that looked like ribs, its roof shingled in overlapping slabs like knuckles. The windows glowed faint amber. The entire structure rested not on a foundation, but on 2 enormous root-like legs bent backward like those of a bird. It shifted its weight. Wood creaked like old joints. The man stared. The hut turned toward him. The door swung open. Warm light spilled across the snow, and from within came the scent of cedar smoke and something metallic. He did not remember walking toward it. He did not remember screaming. The others heard nothing. Inside the hut, iron teeth gleamed in firelight. 300 miles away, Ayanna Whitethorn woke with blood in her mouth. She sat upright in her apartment, breath ragged, sheets twisted around her legs. Frost crawled across the inside of her bedroom window despite the radiator hissing at full heat. She closed her eyes. "You promised," she whispered. The answer came not in sound, but in pressure, antlers brushing the inside of her thoughts. "They broke ground again," said the voice. Smooth, amused, male. Winter settled into her bones. "You were not to act without me." "I did not act," he replied. "The land invited me." Her jaw tightened. The sigil over her sternum burned. A branching mark like thorns coiled around a crescent. It pulsed beneath her skin. "You are not the land." A pause. Then laughter, low and velvet dark. "No," the horned boogeyman agreed, "but I am what answers when it is wounded." She rose and crossed to the window. Below, the city moved unaware. Traffic lights blinking, buses sighing at corners, strangers passing beneath street lamps without looking up. She pressed her palm to the glass. Frost spread outward from her touch. "Show me," she said. The world folded, not physically, but spiritually, like stepping between heartbeats. Her apartment dissolved into the Witch Road, a corridor of skeletal trees bending inward overhead. Snow fell upward here, rising into a sky of churning ash. The path beneath her boots was packed earth scored with hoofprints that smoldered faintly. Ahead, the crooked hut waited. It did not knock. The door opened. She stepped inside. The interior was larger than it had any right to be. Shelves of bone and jarred shadows lined the walls. Bundles of dried herbs hung from rafters that had once been something alive. At the center, a hearth burned green. In a rocking chair carved from vertebrae sat the crone. Her hair was white as salt, braided with feathers and wire. Her eyes were sharp as broken glass. When she smiled, iron flashed behind her lips. "You are late," the crone said. "I was not called." "You are always called." Ayanna's gaze shifted to the far corner. He stood half in shadow, half in flame. Tall, broad-shouldered, antlers branching from his skull like a crown grown from bone. The horned boogeyman inclined his head. "Wife? Winter." The word tasted like frostbite. The crone spat into the fire. It hissed. "They dug again," the old woman said. "They broke soil that should not be turned." "I warned them," Ayanna replied. The boogeyman stepped forward. The hut breathed with him. "You warned them as a scholar," he said gently, "as a woman holding paper in law." His amber eyes gleamed. "Perhaps it is time you warned them as my knight." Silence thickened. Ayanna removed her coat. The sigil beneath her skin flared brighter. "I choose when I ride," the boogeyman smiled. "Do you?" The hut shuddered. The walls peeled back like eyelids. Through the windows she saw the drilling site, snow-stained dark. Machinery twisted. 3 men missing. 1 alive. Running. He saw the hut. The boogeyman murmured inside her ribs. "He will speak of it. They will call it hysteria. They will send more men. Louder teeth." The crone leaned forward. "Balance," she rasped. "Or hunger. Decide." Ayanna remembered the first night, bleeding into snow, the bargain offered. Life for service. Power for tether. She exhaled. "Armor me." The hut answered. Bone flowed across her skin like liquid. Blackened plate formed over her limbs, etched with ember-red patterns. A mantle of spectral bison fur settled across her shoulders. The helm rose, antlered and sharp. Her heartbeat synchronized with something deeper than pulse. She reached into the hearth, flames solidified into obsidian. The great blade formed in her grasp, jagged and alive. Grievance hummed. The boogeyman circled her, not touching. "Remember," he murmured, "fear lasts longer than death." "I am not you." "No," he agreed softly, "but you are mine." The witch road split beneath her. She fell upward into the storm. The drilling site was chaos. Emergency lights spun red across snow and broken equipment. Helicopters circled but dared not land as wind shear twisted their instruments. The surviving contractor stumbled toward the road, sobbing into a dead radio. The wind stopped. He looked up. She stood between him and escape, black armor drinking the light, antlers cutting the sky, shadows stretching impossibly long behind her. He dropped to his knees. "I didn't know," he stammered. "We were told it was clear." Grievance pulsed. The blade did not crave blood, it sought testimony. "Who signed the order?" she asked, her voice layered, human and something older. "Corporate," he cried. "I just run equipment, I swear." "Break him," the boogeyman whispered. "Let him carry terror home." Her grip tightened. The earth trembled. Company logos stamped into machinery began to groan. From the stylized bison skull welded onto a fuel truck, bone tore free of steel. A spectral bison emerged, shaking off sparks like snow. Then another, and another. A luminous stampede formed behind her, vast, furious, ancestral. She pointed the blade not at the man, but at the drilling rig. "Witness," the bison charged. Metal folded like paper. Towers collapsed inward. Earth swallowed fractured equipment. Fuel tanks imploded without fire. The destruction was precise, targeted. Nothing living was trampled. When it ended, the site was a graveyard of machinery. The man lay sobbing in snow. She stepped close enough that her shadow covered him. "If you return," she said, "I will not be as measured." She turned away. The boogeyman's disappointment radiated cold. Mercy is inefficient. Mercy is chosen. He manifested briefly beside her, visible only to her, antlered and radiant with restrained violence. "You think you command this?" "I do." He reached toward her helm, stopping short. "One day," he whispered, "you will need me fully." Her eyes burned brighter behind the visor. "And that," she said, "is the day you should fear." The storm collapsed inward. The witch road opened. She stepped back into the crooked hut, armor dissolving into smoke. The crone watched with unreadable approval. "For now," the old woman said, "you ride well." Ayana looked toward the shadowed corner where the boogeyman lingered. Outside, beyond mortal sight, something shifted in the dark between forests. Not summoned, not invited, watching. The boogeyman felt it too. His smile faded, and deep beneath the earth the drilling had pierced, something ancient turned in its sleep. The road stretched longer. The bells had only begun to ring.
Now for number 2. Which number 2 and number 3 kind of goes over their origins.
The Thorned Mare number 2, the winter wedding. Before she wore armor, before antlers crowned her shadow, before the blade named Grievance ever hummed in her grasp, Ayana Whitethorn died in the snow. The land had been quiet that day, tense in the way air becomes before lightning chooses where to fall. Protest lines stood firm along the ridge where Blackridge Extraction had driven fluorescent stakes into soil that had never consented to be measured. Elders held eagle feathers and sang low songs older than fences. Students linked arms. Drones blinked red overhead like mechanical insects. Ayana stood at the front, not with a weapon, but with documents, injunction filings, environmental impact reports, maps layered with burial markers and water tables. She believed in record, in testimony, in proof. The machines idled behind the security line like patient beasts. When the push came, it was sudden. Someone threw something. Later, no one agreed on what. A bottle, a rock, a lie. The line fractured. Panic rippled. Security surged forward with shields and batons. Protesters scattered across churned earth and early frost. Ayana remembered falling. She remembered a boot, she remembered the taste of copper, and then she remembered the sky. Snow began falling, though the forecast promised clear weather. Each flake drifted down in eerie silence, settling into her hair and lashes. The shouting receded, swallowed by distance. Her fingers pressed into frozen soil that should never have been disturbed. "Not like this," she tried to say. The land did not answer. But something else did. The wind stopped. The world held its breath. From the tree line beyond the ridge, something unfolded. At first, it seemed like distortion in white and gray. Then wood creaked. Roots tore free of earth with a fibrous, wet sound. A hut stepped into view on two enormous, backward bent legs ending in clawed roots that gripped soil like talons. Its walls were ribbed, its windows glowed amber. Its door opened slowly, as if inhaling. Inside was warmth. Inside was firelight. Inside was a figure hunched over a hearth, stirring something thick in an iron pot. Ayana did not remember rising. She only knew her blood was no longer soaking into the snow. She walked. Each step toward the hut felt like crossing a threshold no map could record. The door shut behind her with finality. The interior was vast, impossibly so. Shelves carved from bone arched toward a ceiling lost in shadow. Bundles of dried plants hung alongside strings of teeth. A loom woven with sinew creaked in the corner, though no hands touched it. The old woman at the hearth did not look up. "You come early," she said, voice like bark stripped from winter wood. "I didn't mean to." "No one does." The crone turned. Her eyes were sharp as obsidian shards. Iron gleamed when she smiled. Not ornament, but teeth. "You stand between breaths," she said. "Your heart is undecided." Ayana felt the absence in her chest, the pause where rhythm should have been. "I don't want to die." The crone snorted softly. "Of course you don't." Ayana's gaze drifted to the far corner. At first, she mistook him for Shadow. Then the shadow stepped forward. He was tall enough that his antlers brushed the beams overhead without touching. His shape was man-like but deliberate, sculpted by intention rather than biology. Amber light burned in his eyes. He wore no crown. He required none. "Ayana Whitethorn," he said, her name folding easily into his voice as if it had always belonged there. "You fight hard for someone so breakable." She should have been afraid. Instead, she felt recognition, like remembering a story told long ago. "You're not death," she said, a slight smile. "No, death is a function. I am a choice." The crone resumed stirring. "He smells like winter roads," she muttered, "and broken promises." The antlered figure inclined his head. "They have broken many promises to you," he said. Images flickered in the green fire. Treaties signed and ignored, schools built to erase language, rivers darkened by industry, burial grounds fenced and sold. Ayana's jaw tightened. "I know history. You know it." He agreed. "But you cannot stop it." Anger flared, then dimmed as weakness surged back through her. "My heart is slowing," the crone finished. "Snow does that." The antlered figure stepped closer. "I can return it," he said. She met his gaze fully. Up close, he was not monstrous. He was terrible. There was a difference. "And the cost? You will be my knight in the waking world." The word echoed strangely. "Knight? You will ride where land is wounded. You will answer desecration with consequence. You will carry my mark in my blade. You will become the hinge upon which fear turns." The crone glanced at Ayana. "He asks for marriage," she clarified. Ayana blinked. "This is mythology." "This," the crone said, "is survival." Her knees buckled. The world tilted. She felt snow reclaiming her body outside these walls. "If I refuse?" she asked. "You die," the antlered figure said simply. The machines return. They drill deeper. They unearth bones without names. And I find another who is desperate enough to listen. No threat, only truth. And if I accept, you live, you fight, you change the taste of fear in the mouths of those who profit from it. And you, his eyes gleamed brighter, I feed. Silence. Ayana looked to the crone. The old woman shrugged. All marriages feed something. Snow began falling inside the hut. Her heart fluttered once, then stilled. Decide, the crone said. Ayana thought of her grandmother's stories, roads that walked, spirits who tested resolve, covenants stronger than chains. She thought of breath. I will not be your monster, she said. The antlered figure's expression softened. No, you will be mine. It was not romance. It was alignment. Terms, she demanded. The crone grinned wide. Yes, always terms. Ayana steadied herself. I choose when I ride. He nodded. You may resist my voice. A faint pause. I will try. If I sever the bond, you do not take my soul. The fire flared. That is the only clause I cannot promise, he said quietly. The crone rose. Enough. Blood seals what words begin. The hut shifted. The floor split open, revealing dark crossroads soil beneath, earth from places where countless decisions had been made and unmade. The crone produced a knife carved from what looked disturbingly like human femur. Hand. Ayana extended her trembling palm. The blade cut clean. Blood welled bright. The antlered figure cut his own hand without flinch. His blood was darker, nearly black, steaming faintly. The crone pressed their hands together. Blood mingled. The hut screamed. Outside, in the snow-covered protest site, Ayana's lifeless body arched violently. Wind roared outward in concentric rings. Inside, roots coiled around their joined wrists. Repeat, commanded the crone. He spoke first. I bind myself to the thorned one. I enter her breath and grant her mine. Through her steps I walk. Through her blade I answer. Ayana's voice trembled but held. I bind myself to winter. I carry his mark but keep my will. I answer wound with reckoning. I ride in balance, not hunger. The roots tightened, the hut tilted sideways without falling. The crone drove the knife into the earth between them. By root and bone, by snow and ember, you are wed. The antlered figure leaned close. For a heartbeat, his antlers dissolved into shadow, and he appeared almost human. He pressed his forehead to hers. Her chest convulsed. Her heart roared back to life. Outside, she inhaled violently, snow scattering from her lips. The machines on the ridge stalled in unison. Metal corroded in seconds. Fluorescent stakes split and blackened. Ayana rose from the snow, eyes burning gold. Inside the hut, the crone cackled softly. It is done. The boogeyman, no longer merely shadow, flexed his fingers as if testing new weight. Wife, he said. The mark seared itself into Ayana's sternum, thorned, crescented, eternal. Winter, she replied. The hut's door opened. The witch road stretched outward. When she stepped back into the mortal world, she did so not as a dying woman, but as the thorned mare. Behind her, in the shifting dark between trees, the horned boogeyman watched through her eyes for the first time. And somewhere deeper than law or land deeds, something ancient acknowledged the covenant. Far off, harness bells began to ring.
And here is number 3, which retcons her real name. Since I didn't know she had a real name, actually, when I was making these stories. I wasn't thinking of one, and I didn't know the story gave
The
her
Thorn
one.
Mare of 3, Winter knows your name. The forest did not approve of marriage. It tolerated it. It watched it. It measured it against root and bone, and older vows carved into stone long before rings meant anything. Asha Redthorn rode at dusk, briars woven into the flanks of her black mare like living armor. Her own armor, grown, not forged, shifted softly with each breath she took. Thorn vines curved over her shoulders, framing her face like a crown that had chosen pain as decoration. Beside her, the air grew colder. He did not ride. He unfolded. Shadows peeled themselves from tree trunks and gathered into a tall, narrow shape walking without sound. The boogeyman moved like frost creeping across glass. Elegant, patient, inevitable. His antlered silhouette bent slightly toward her as if the forest itself were leaning in to hear him speak. Wife, he murmured, voice like winter wind beneath a door. Asha didn't look at him. Winter? She replied easily, as though addressing an old friend and not a demon stitched from fear. The word wife still felt new on her skin. She liked how he said it. Not possessive, certain. They had not chosen a honeymoon destination. The hunt had chosen it for them. A church stood at the edge of the forest where the trees refused to grow closer. Its white paint peeled in strips like shedding skin. Its bell tower leaned slightly as though tired of pretending holiness. The children of the nearby settlement had begun disappearing 2 weeks ago. The priest had begun preaching louder. Winter tilted his horned head. He burns herbs to mask the rot, he observed. He fears something. Asha swung down from her saddle. Good, she said. Fear is honest. They approached together. Inside, candles flickered nervously against stone walls stained darker than incense could justify. Pews sat empty. At the altar stood a thin man in black, hands clasped, eyes too bright. Father Kincaid, Asha said calmly. He smiled. It was not kind. I wondered when the stories would send you, he replied. The thorned mare and her shadowed groom. Winter's silhouette lengthened behind her. She is my wife, he corrected gently. Father Kincaid's gaze sharpened. Abomination, he hissed. Asha removed her helmet slowly. Thorn vines shifted aside from her face. Her dark hair spilled free, braided with small red threads. Where are the children? She asked. The priest's smile widened. Safe, he said. Purified. Winter's shadow twitched. Asha's jaw tightened. You mean bound, she replied. The air thickened. The altar cloth shifted as something beneath it breathed. Father Kincaid raised a hand. Symbols carved into the floor ignited in sickly gold. The church doors slammed shut. You wedded demon, Kincaid said, voice rising. You ride with nightmares, and yet you judge me? I judge what hurts children, Asha answered. The floor cracked open. From beneath the altar rose something stitched from scripture and bone, a warped angelic construct, wings nailed into place, halo fused to a skull that had never been human. The children's whispers echoed from its ribcage. Winter's temperature dropped. Frost crawled across the pews. He has grafted faith into flesh, Winter observed softly. Crude. Asha stepped forward. Winter, she said quietly. He leaned closer. Yes, wife? Take the left. The construct lunged. Asha moved like a storm riding horseback, fast, grounded, relentless. Thorn vines burst from her gauntlets, snapping around the creature's wings and dragging it sideways. Winter dissolved into mist and reformed behind it, long-clawed fingers slicing through golden sigils in the air. Father Kincaid began chanting. The halo above the creature flared. Asha felt heat bite her skin. Winter's voice threaded into her thoughts. He is drawing from their belief. Break the altar. She nodded once. The construct slammed her through a pew. Wood splintered. Thorn armor absorbed the worst of it. Wife, Winter said, not panicked, but sharper. I'm fine, she snapped back. She surged forward again, ignoring the creature, sprinting straight for the altar. Father Kincaid's eyes widened. You dare defile this house of God? Asha's hand struck stone. Thorns exploded outward like a living earthquake. They ripped through the altar, shattering the hidden reliquary beneath. A cage made of rosary chains and carved bone holding the children's spirits tethered. The halo cracked. The construct screamed. Winter extended his arms. Darkness poured from him. Not chaotic, not wild, precise as a surgeon's cut. He wrapped the construct in shadow and pulled. The stolen whispers slipped free. Light returned to the church, not holy, natural. The construct collapsed into dust. Father Kincaid staggered backward. You consort with evil, he spat. Winter stood tall now, antlers brushing the ceiling. I am evil, he said pleasantly, but she is not. Asha walked toward the priest. Her thorns receded slightly as she approached him, not because she softened, because she no longer needed armor. You hid behind doctrine, she said. You called cruelty devotion. He tried to speak again. Winter stepped behind him. Wife? Winter asked softly. She looked at the priest, looked at the fear in his eyes. Take his voice, she said, not his life. Winter obliged. He pressed 2 fingers gently to Kincaid's throat. The priest gasped, and no sound followed. Ever again. Winter stepped back. Asha turned toward the door as it creaked open on its own. Outside, the forest leaned closer. The freed children stumbled from the tree line, alive, confused, crying, but whole. She exhaled slowly. The briars along her armor softened into vine and leaf. Winter approached her quietly. You chose mercy, he said. I chose balance, she replied. They stood in the cooling twilight, the church silent behind them. Winter tilted his head slightly. There is something I have wondered. She raised a brow. Oh? When we wed, he continued, you did not give me your true name. Asha stilled. The wind shifted. Winter's gaze was not accusatory. Curious. I have walked beside you as wife, he said softly, but not as the girl before the thorns. She studied him carefully. You call me wife like it is a prayer, she said. It is. Silence stretched between them, not cold, expectant. She stepped closer. You may know it, she said at last. Winter leaned slightly toward her. My name, she said, voice steady, is Asha Redthorn. The forest inhaled. Winter did not flinch. He did not recoil. He did not claim it. He bowed his horned head instead. Asha, he repeated carefully, as if committing it to something deeper than memory. The sound of it in his voice felt different. Softer. More deliberate. She smirked faintly. Don't get used to it, she warned. I will still call you wife, he replied. And I will still call you Winter. Good. He reached out, long shadowed fingers brushing a strand of her hair away from her face. The gesture was almost shy. For our honeymoon, he said lightly, you choose interesting destinations. She glanced back at the ruined church. You prefer beaches? I prefer you. She blinked. For a being woven from nightmare, he could be unexpectedly direct. Her cheeks warmed faintly beneath the fading thorn crown. Careful, she murmured. You're getting sentimental. I am adapting. She laughed softly, a rare sound bright against the forest's hush. Come on, Winter, she said, taking his hand. His shadow curled gently around her fingers. Where to now, wife? He asked. She mounted her mare and looked toward the deepening woods. Somewhere colder, she said. Winter smiled in the dark, and together, bride of briars and the thing beneath children's beds, they rode into the forest like a promise neither heaven nor hell had written.
Anyways, that's the end of this video, but I have more stories coming soon.